very good working relationship right now, so.
Some people need to go to the microphone.
Yes, if you have comments, just come up to the microphone and identify yourself. Mike, go ahead.
Michael Prisco, from the Board of Selectmen. I'm sorry if I'm asking questions that maybe some of these guys know because they're on the finance
go
planning
right
team
ahead.
meeting, so I apologize in advance because I haven't really heard anything. But you mentioned something about closing the gap. Could you just give me a little more of the detail associated with closing the gap? How much money was it that was provided in closing the gap from the town side, and where did the money come from? And I know you had mentioned snow and ice is one of the particular areas, so I assume, did all of it come from the snow and ice? If it wasn't just snow and ice, what else? And if you could give me the detailed numbers.
I'm gonna ask Kyle, and I'm gonna ask Bob to expand on it, because I think Bob has probably got one of the best handles on it. But it was, again, it was funds that were available to the town in general, both the town side and the school committee side. And Bob, I think it might have been a plan that actually a town administrator might have actually come up with originally. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Kyle, do you want to expand?
Sure,
on
why
that?
don't I
Bob,
try-
jump in whenever you want.
Yes, thank you. I'll provide an overview as I understand it. You know, if you remember some of the slides we showed a moment ago, we talked about a process, and an important part of that process is a stage whereby the town administrator, town's finance director, and others are looking very carefully at what all the available revenues are going to be for the following year. At the same time, they're looking very carefully at some of the shared costs. And unfortunately, a lot of this information doesn't become available until the April period. The best example of that is the health insurance costs. I know the town engages a consultant to help quantify the costs of health insurance. And it's my understanding that that information became available to the TA in late March. So that was the first stage where I believe that opened up several $100,000. When I say opened up, what I'm really saying is in the revenue and expense projection sheets that the town uses to project the following year's costs, there was a placeholder that the town administrator had been using for what he assumed next year's health insurance costs were going to be. So we got a new number that was a heck of a lot better. That was, I think, one of the more important areas.
Instead of 8% increase next year, it was actually 5%. And that represents.
Additionally, we have budgeted in the past number of years for additions to the health plan. Spouses maybe lost a job, and the other spouse obviously came and joined the system. Well, this past year, that had leveled off, so the amount of money we have in this year's budget for that increase in participation actually didn't occur. So when we reduced from 8%, which was our early estimates of the cost of insurance, to 5, we also adjusted that 5 based on what our real usage is for next year, eliminating the reserve that clearly we don't need anymore.
And that was significant. It was,
So that brought the total increase down into I think it was around 2%.
Right.
Over what we had budgeted last year.
and that's equivalent to about a savings of $300,000, correct me if I'm wrong. So that's a significant amount of money right there. Thank you, Bob. Cal?
And then I think in addition, it's also my understanding that the town administrator had noted that the so-called cohort that North Reading contains was a healthy year, so that health insurance costs are sometimes a function of the previous year's expenses, and I think that there was a lot of wellness that took place in this community, so that helped as well. I mentioned snow and ice. The costs of that were the DPW had to use this winter was a lot less than had been projected in our expense revenue sheets. That was, I believe, in order of importance, the second most largest contributor to the narrowing of the gap.
I mean,
Do you have a number?
well, I think based on the last two.
The number that was applied to the budgets, basically the way the snow and ice worked, the deficit occurred, and before the end of the year, the past few years, we've taken money from free cash to fund the deficit in the snow budget. So this year, I'm explaining it for everybody. So this year, obviously, we don't have to take very much out to fund the deficit, which is very tiny. So about $400,000 of free cash was applied to the short-term capital items that are in both the school and the town budget. One big example, I think, was $170,000 was textbooks in your budget.
Correct.
So that was a justification of the free cash above $400,000 is being used for the purpose.
And Bob can answer this better than I, but I don't think that's gonna really jeopardize free cash because this cash was available as a result of the mild winter that we had, but, Kyle?
You know, as I looked at the revenue sheet that was distributed last week, I then saw probably 10 other positive changes, ranging from modest increases in certain town revenues to other decreases in certain shared expenses. One that I can mention too that was a six-figure improvement was the school cost for retirement. As a result of collective bargaining that took place at 6 years ago with teachers, the so-called sick leave buyback costs have gone down dramatically as each year goes by, and the year-to-year decrease in the sick leave buyback cost for the school department is $125,000, right there, and that has more than it's halved several times running. So those are the three largest areas, and I think I would.
One other,
Okay, please.
cell tower revenue.
Yes,
Okay.
Right.
good cell, yes, thank God for the cell phones, yes. Bob, go ahead, you wanna just talk a
Cell
little bit?
tower revenue is way up.
Yeah,
And
significantly.
that's a result of us leasing out additional locations, additional spots on existing locations, and we also get money when we have a lease with, let's say, AT&T, and they sublease, we get a piece of that action too.
So there are a lot of factors that combine to free up some revenue. And again, when you're projecting early on in the season, you have to be conservative, particularly with health insurance costs. The town's done a great job of, I think, bringing consultants to look at the best options for health insurance with the best savings for the entire town. So those are all the things that contributed to us getting this number down to where we think it's a workable number that is not going to impact the staffing in class size and programs for the next fiscal year. But we do take this 1 year at a time, as everybody knows, I think, by now, so. Mike, sure. Mike, just the microphone, only because they can't hear you.
No, that's fine. No, what I was hoping to get, maybe I wasn't as clear on my question. We were talking about a $1.2 million deficit before. Now you've said we've narrowed it down to about 280. So that $1 million roughly, can you just, I'm just trying to understand. So $200,000 came from free cash from snow and ice. And then, so where did the other $800,000 come from?
Well, again, I think it was just what we went through, the cell tower revenue, the savings from the snow and ice, the health insurance costs, all of the combined additional revenues available to the town cut that deficit. And I think it also, obviously, all of that did not go to the school side. Some of it went towards the town side as well to cut into the deficit that they had.
I was just trying to figure out what that was. I haven't seen or heard anything about it, so.
So we just had the meeting, we haven't had a board meeting since, so.
But, I mean, the revenue figures were just a lot better. I mean, the combination of the snow and ice and the cell tower revenues alone was a significant benefit to both sides of the budget.
We have this year, we're faced with quite a bit of deficit as well, so that's the only reason why I'm asking the questions,
Yeah.
because we're trying to figure out on our end where we're gonna come up with this extra money. That's why it was important for me to find out what pools the money that we're gonna allocate to the
And
schools
I'm
came
not-
from, so we know what's left over to help fund. We have roughly, I think well over $200,000 of deficit as well,
Yeah.
we have to address.
And I'm not sure what that number is now, but I know that obviously some of these funds were made available to the town side. Sean, did you want to say something?
Yeah, this is just a function of, we haven't had a board meeting since our financial planning.
Okay,
team.
yeah,
The town side budget gap has shrunk considerably as well.
exactly. All right, thank you. Deanna?
Just a couple of questions. Carl, in the past, what you've helped us painting a picture for the overall budget is the part that is fixed for the salaries and benefits, but also the expense side. And if you can give us an idea of what that looks like today. And I guess Patrick Daly just did an incredible presentation at the last Superintendent Advisory Council meeting, and it was so well done because it gave us a great picture of how technology has been utilized from the capital budgets for each of the schools and the benefits to the students and to the teachers. And of course, I realize now, because I asked the question at the meeting, that capital item expenditure is now at zero. We used it and used it well. So I think that technology with the 21st century schools that we're going to have in a couple of years, we need to obviously be on track for expanding the programs that seem to have some roots right now. So,
Kyle or Kathy?
Thank you. It's funny that regardless of what our enrollment is, the percentages that are allocated to salary is between 79 and 81%. I suspect that if the district got much, much larger, you'd start to see a change there. But the last 10 years running, the salary piece of the pie has been between 79 and 81%, and the expense piece of the pie for the school department has been the remainder. And the way this budget is structured has a guiding philosophy, and that guiding philosophy is that we want to put all of our resources into the classroom. So in order to do that, the last several years, that expense side of the budget has taken a little bit of a hit. As you probably know, Deanna, the school expense budgets have been level funded for several consecutive years. In fact, if you go back 5 years, the school expense budgets are down 18%. And that is, I wouldn't call it a strategy, but it's been an outcome of a philosophy that the school committee and the superintendent have directed, that being that all available dollars really need to be for teachers. So we're hurting most probably, if you will, in our ability to enhance classroom supplies, textbooks, and technology, because we've been flat expensing those to try to keep class sizes low. And I believe that that's a philosophy that has been consistent for many years.
Jerry, if I,
Mel?
I do think, Deanna, at our last workshop, I wouldn't say we set a goal, but we almost set a goal of not cutting school expenses this year. That's a goal we're trying to get to, because as Carl said, over the last 6 years, they've been cut 18%. And if you're a parent with children in the district, you know what that means, which is more notices home asking you to buy more paper towels or other things that normally we would try to support in the school budget. So we're hoping we can keep that those expense budgets at least level funded this year. I mean, we might not be able to, but.
Kathy?
And I would like to speak to the technology question, Deanna, that you just asked. Earlier this year, the school committee had asked me to present a budget vision to them, and I came forward based on some work that the leadership team has been doing on strategic development around where do we want to be in 5 years. So we call that NRPS 2016. And one of the 5 proposals had to do with technology. We are woefully understaffed in the area of technology integration staff as well as infrastructure support. And the first potential, I want to say, initiative that was in the strategic budget vision was the addition of technology support personnel. So we've done the work. We know what we need over 3 years. Whatever the first year of that 3-year initiative is remains to be seen, because we were not able to include any of that in the level services budget because we don't currently have it. So it has not yet been funded, but that is a goal. We know what we need to do. We just need to restructure some way to find the funding in order to do it.
Did you tier the amounts?
Yes. We have those. Depends on what you call reasonable.
Actually, it was fairly reasonable.
In year 1, it was $70,000.
Reasonable.
In year 2, it was approximately $112,000, and in year 3, it was $46,000.
I mean, this budget process is a year-to-year process. I mean, we had some fortuitous circumstances this year that hopefully have helped us out. But if you go back 3 years ago, FY10, we had close to $1 million in ARRA money from the federal government that helped us through the fiscal year. 2011,